Thank you for having me. I'm Siddhesh. I represent Leadership for Equity from India. And we work across 3 states in India. We partner closely with governments, and we are here to solve the problem of the quality of learning of children studying in government schools all across India at the foundational stage as well as at the secondary stage. Let's dive a little bit deeper into the question of local fundraising. It's an interesting story specifically with us. It's going to make for a curious case study. It's a combination of local factors like local regulations and laws. For example, to be eligible for corporate funding, you have to have existed and been active for 3 years. But to be active for 3 years, you need some funding, right? So it's always like that vicious cycle of existence for the first 3 years. And we were often told by our mentors that once you make into that 0 to 3 years, you somehow be bootstrapped, do the bare minimum, and make it past the 3-year mark, you're going to be able to unlock. So that was one which really forced us to build those networks locally and be self-reliant. The second thing that helped us locally was also the fact that to get foreign funding in India, you need a special license. And due to our name or due to some set of undisclosed factors, we did not get that license until, say, 18 months ago, or I think 12 months ago, right? So not having that license forced us to double down on a lot of our local networks rather than get into the foreign foundations and the foreign donors and foreign networks. So what really helped was a combination of regulation where we had to exist for 3 years with local networks, and then where we could have probably tapped into foreign networks, we could not because of the license, and we continue to double down on local networks and local funding. So this was a fun story of how we came to be self-reliant. Funding locally in India specifically is a combination of corporate philanthropy, family foundations and HNIs, and retail fundraising. The fourth one, which is a newly emerging one, being this multilateral contracting and government projects through multilateral funding. We have found success in corporate fundraising, in some family foundations, as well as government contracting. Based on the kind of work that we do and the approach we take, we have not found success in retail fundraising, however. And there are many NGOs who do that really well, but I'd love to share about these 3 things in today's case. Family foundations are quite special because the strategy of that family into giving is that they want to do something socially meaningful, but they rely on experts in the social sector like us, like you, who have been leading work in that space, right? But they also want to give in areas or in domains which they care deeply about. It need not necessarily be the most strategic thing, similar to some other multilaterals or governments or corporates, but it is much more personal. So the engagement strategy that works really well is emphasizing understanding what the family stands for, what is it that they care deeply about, or a particular member in that family cares deeply about, and emphasizing those aspects of your work in personalized communication with that family. And truly breaking down complex theories of change and technical realities which we may know well and we may be well versed, but breaking them down into really easy to understand stories, easy to understand facts which will stay with them long after your meeting, right? And that's something that's really helped us stay in good touch with these families and continued engagement with them. Traditional approaches like letters from stakeholders, videos, etc. work, but what really works is emphasizing and understanding what they care deeply about, whether it is a geographical area or whether it's a community or whether it's a domain, and then using that as a thread of conversation with them. So corporate philanthropy is a very interesting point to speak about, and I'm going to get into it in a little bit of detail. So the one thing that's really helpful for NGOs in India is the Corporate Social Responsibility Law, which mandates companies to donate 2% of their profit every year, right? So that's really helpful. And the way we do it is, we are lucky because sectorally in India, education is where the largest chunk of the pie is going. And already it is something that is close to a lot of corporate interests where they want to be seen to be funding education. So that's already a good enabling factor for us. The way we do it is The toughest part really is cracking your first corporate philanthropy. Once you do that, you will develop internal discipline, you will develop credibility and word of mouth to crack other corporates through the snowball effect. What helps us have a very good relationship is extremely high responsiveness. Whether it is even a basic meeting, whether it's a WhatsApp message, whether it's an email, be on top of that communication, extremely helpful. Secondly, corporate philanthropy is also all about compliance. So early in your organizational journey, if you're able to develop the internal discipline of clean books, clean compliances, having policies for everything, which explains why we are spending money the way we are spending money, helps the corporates a lot, because corporate philanthropy is also about image, and it's also about ensuring that wherever that corporate brand is spending its money and is associated with it, also being spent cleanly, right? So if you are clean and you're able to have multiple audits done by them and are able to pass that internal discipline will pay huge dividends in cracking further corporate partners. The way we do it is, we are fortunate to have well-connected members of our board who give us initial introductions, but the way we do it is, our strategy is also not very corporate friendly. It's not something that is going to easily resonate, but we are able to break down what we're doing, educate the members of their investment committee, share a lot of stories, and our government partnerships really help convince them that the scale at which we are working and the depth with which we have government relations is valuable to them as corporate brands as well. So that really helps us shortlist the corporates and be eligible for a lot of further corporate funding, because clean books, good partnerships, high responsiveness, all helpful for strong corporate philanthropy. Multilateral financing is pretty contentious. It's a newly emerging trend in the last 5 to 7 years, specifically in education, because traditionally multilateral funding goes to governments for large-scale projects like building schools, procurement of infrastructure, and so on. But recently, what we have seen a shift in the way at least some of the multilateral projects in education are operating is they're not purely based on infrastructure. There's some percentage of funding that is devoted to quality, right? And the way at least some of the projects have been designed is keeping in mind that these quality funds should not be going to consultants or the Big Four or any specific private entity. It should traditionally or specifically go to non-profits who have got deep experience in that particular vertical. It could be school leadership, it could be teacher development, it could be creating of content and animation, it could be anything. But non-profits who work closely with the communities, that's something that I've seen some of the projects being targeted at. So procurement rules dictate that, they make it easy for the non-profits to come in. However, as a non-profit, you have to have a lot of risk appetite and understanding of legal regulations, because many advisors will tell you, don't get into this because you're suddenly making profit, right? You're not getting a grant, you're making profit through this service contracts. So what helped us was we got good, sound legal advice from Supreme Court lawyers who basically looked at why our company has been formed, what is the articles of our association, and what is there in this project, and made an argument showing that any funds received for this project is essentially charitable, because it serves the charitable ends of education as defined in the way we were formulated, our organization was formulated. So that really helped. And we also had to convince the income tax department that although the money is coming in against an invoice, why is an NGO invoicing, right? We were able to convince them that it's actually a charitable money. We are not having any surplus. There is the promoters of the company are not taking any profit. So it's a non-profit activity. It's aligned with the purposes of our organization. So being very well aware of the legal and financial implications, and having that risk appetite that you will have these hard conversations with the legal teams and the financial teams to push this ahead. The second thing, so now great, you're ready to take the risk, but how do you actually get it, right? And many organizations might be ready to take that risk. So two things that were really helpful and helped us was a combination of having very good technical proposal writing skills, where in a way that is understandable to a consultant who's actually going to be, ranking those proposals. We were able to write, and consistently over 4 or 5 projects, LFE has been either number one or number two in the technical scores of these proposals. Second thing that helped us was we're a young team, we're a small team, we're just 8 years old. So our costing and per child cost and the kind of cost for the entire project is extremely competitive compared to some of the more established organizations. So we were able to get, because of the competitive costing and the strong technical proposal writing skills, we were able to crack that. So I think having these skills are also important, and being very timely. And like I said, for corporate philanthropy, building that internal discipline of compliance, this is where it will truly pay dividends, because even to be eligible for a multilateral contract, your compliance has to be clean. And it has to withstand strong government and multilateral audits. So if you're already doing that for your corporates, and on top of that, you have built skills for technical writing and financial costing, you stand a great chance, specifically in the current environment, to get into that multilateral financing. Better connection with funding connectors, or meta NGOs as I call them, or sometimes they refer to themselves as NGOs for other NGOs, right? It's a pretty interesting characterization. So the way I find it helpful to be associated with them is 3 or 4 things. First thing is thought leadership and contribution to knowledge. Because if you have expertise in your domain, your field, and you're able to take advantage of various national or state level forums for talking about that problem or your approach, you tend to get noticed, right? So some thought leadership, and I'm just not talking about AI generated LinkedIn posts. You have to have genuine connection and genuine contributions to make. And in these forums, you will come across representatives of these organizations who you can form a personal human connection with, and that helps. The second thing that is useful is evidence generation, because a lot of these organizations work very similar to consultants in the nonprofit space. And if you're able to put out reports, if you're able to put out even basic research, it may not be university quality research, but some basic study on your area of expertise, your area of operations, and what are some of the nuances that you've come across. If you're able to put that out, that evidence or report usually gets noticed, and then you get contacted for further details, because that helps them at a larger level. So that's something that's quite useful while being in touch with them. The third thing is something that we do very often is funder immersion and partner immersion. So we don't usually hold a showcase of our programs or our events, but we really immerse the partners in the problem that we're trying to solve. So say, for example, we're trying to solve the problems of small schools in rural India. So rather than show our school or the schools where we are associated, we take them to any small school or small village which has that low enrollment school, and get them to talk to people as to why the school is still functional, what makes it financially viable, and so on. And when they understand the problem, they really understand the reason behind our existence and why we continue to support these kind of schools. And it need not be a showcase of our work, but when they know that we understand the problem so well, that builds curiosity into being associated with us in the longer term. And the fourth sort of a cheat code is being associated with some sort of a capacity building program or a track of these meta organizations, and they typically have a lot of these advisory services. And if you're able to do that, we learn a lot from them when we're able to speak their language, but we're also then liable to get showcased by them in their networks, right? So 3 things, and the 4th cheat code is sure to get us into good relationships with these meta NGOs or connector NGOs. For raising funds and maintaining good funder relations, there are a lot of things that we can do. It's a combination of online large-scale communications as well as targeted, specific, personalized communication. All of this boils down to discipline of frequency of communication, whether it's having 1 LinkedIn post a day for your organizational handle, or having a quarterly funder-specific report talking about, with talking points and stories that they care about. That really helps. The second thing is personal relationships, the founder being personally connected to whoever is the point of contact in the donor, on the donor side, is a non-negotiable. I feel it cannot just be left to your teams. Of course, the hygiene, communication, and day-to-day can be done, but that personal touch of the founder to be connected to the main person from the donor side is really helpful and helps build that goodwill over a longer period of time. The third skill, which I feel I'm still need to improve on, is storytelling. People remember stories and people remember emotional connections long after any technical presentation that you've made in a meeting, right? So having stories in video formats, in interview formats, having the stakeholder voices represented, and always having one or two stories from your work, which I'm sure you'll have hundreds of, on the top of your mind, on the tip of your tongue, really helps leave that lasting impression. And those stories are something that you can capitalize on for continuous engagement. So things like letters to donors from beneficiaries, if that is something that is relevant to your program, is really helpful. Something that like a docu-series or interviews with your stakeholders is really helpful. And having targeted online as well as offline communications in a set frequency is also helpful. The cultural and contextual example is not, at least for our work, is not so much social. It's more, I would say, socio-political in nature, where a lot of fundraising community is always under the scanner, right? And for good reason, because you don't want any malpractice happening in the non-profit space. So what we've also seen happening is many organizations or founders who express their views extremely candidly on all the social and political events of the day. Sometimes they find it tougher to crack partnerships, and they find it tougher to get into those funding networks, right? Because there's an image associated with it. So it's a double-edged sword, right? Because we believe in our principles, we would want to take a stance, but we also have a responsibility towards the work that we do, towards the team members, and towards the communities that we serve, so that there is no interruption in our service. So I think the cultural or the specific barrier, I would say, is that sort of moral or ethical dilemma in terms of taking a public stand on all the things that you believe in. And we have a full right to believe in any side of any particular political or social event. But I think picking and choosing your battles and knowing which forums to express which kind of opinion is a delicate skill which comes with maturity, and which comes not with a set of, I would not call it compromise, but I would call it more of a mature understanding of having a stable organization versus being outspoken. So that's something that I believe many of my friends and colleagues in the non-profit founder community have been struggling with. But it's also something that it's a delicate balancing act which we've been hopefully pulling off over the past many years.